D-BT10 brought some amazing support to Avantgarda in the form of this grade 1 here, Blue Deathster Hanada Halfway, bringing this deck card advantage and a consistent counter charger, two things that this deck very much needed, and definitely cleans up the deck, in my opinion, tremendously, and allows for the overall build of the deck list to feel more clean and consistent overall. So I wanted to bring you my preliminary deck list, untested. Just thought it'd be cool to kind of give the thoughts of what theories going into this deck and upgrading it I have put together for testing, so maybe you will be able to get some ideas when building your own decks, whether it be Avantgarda or just copying some of the thought processes I have for your own deck. So let's get right into the list. For the ride line, I run the starter Sora Period, the grade 1 Dark Verdict, the grade 2 Heavenly Deathray, and the grade 3 Avantgarda, obviously because it is the name of the deck. We need the Sora Period because Avantgarda needs Sora Period and Soul to be able to use its effect. It is the pilot, so makes sense. Though that means we're operating off of one less soul since we need this card around. Dark Verdict, when wrote upon by Heavenly Deathray, lets us search out the grade 1 strategy card or call itself to Regard Circle. Heavenly Deathray, when wrote upon by Avantgarda, lets us search out the grade 2 strategy set order or call itself out to Regard. When we honest, we prefer the soul, so I am seldomly calling these out, even if I have nothing to search. Find the grade 1 strategy card, and the grade 2 for that matter helps thin the deck, which is really nice, meaning we're upping our trigger odds when swinging with Avantgarda, as we do get 3 drive checks since it restands itself. And of course, just having these to play each turn is crucial for what this deck likes to do, as we'll see as we get into the other cards. So again, this ride line just makes perfect sense. Like most decks, 3 copies of Persona Ride, and that's arguably even more important in this deck, as this effect to restand itself either needs to hit or you need to have Persona Road that turn. In this case, you do not need it to hit, and that's much more preferable, guaranteeing the restand. It synergizes a lot better with a lot of our other cards, and just extra pressure and extra drive check is great to see. So definitely want to max this one out, and getting these Persona Rides to hand is a big focus of this deck. The other grade 3 I run is 4 copies of the Halton Vogel. I hope I pronounced that right. But this card is great to find our grade 3 strategy order, which is arguably our most powerful order in the deck and the one we're going to want to be using when we start Persona Riding. So be able to thin the deck of 1 or loop it back from the drop zone is great. And the nice thing is, since Avantgarda puts the strategy cards into Soul for its effect to gain the restand effect, this card, since it's Soul Blast, can easily get it out of Soul. We're not trying to find other pieces to get out of the Soul. This one just can loop itself, no problem. And it's also nice, 13k for a great attacking number, and can gain another 5k if you do play a strategy card, meaning this swings for 18k all its own, meaning it scales phenomenally once we're doing additional power gain effects. This is just our best attacker, one of our best consistency tools for our strategy cards, thus 4 copies of this makes a lot of sense. Moving over to the grade 2s, I run 3 copies of Operate Master Freiheit. While this is a will+Dress support card, this is also just a generic Persona Ride searcher for Brandgate as a whole for a counterblast and a discard. And since Persona Ride is so crucial in this deck, definitely want to be running copies of this. Not the full 4 copies, because I feel like that final slot in deck space can be better utilized elsewhere. And I feel like this is functionally 3 copies of Persona Ride in deck, or sorry, 6 copies, 3 additional copies in deck. And when I was testing this previous set, those 3 copies was working just fine. I've seen no reason why this is the case in this upgrade variant, and arguably this might not even be as crucial because we are drawing more cards with the Hanada Halfway, but I still think 3 copies will make a lot of sense in testing, so I'm going to start there. Next up for the grade 2s, I run 4 copies of the Sickle Blade of Inquest Habitable Zone. So the cycle card for Brandgate here, brand new inclusion for BT10, and I like this card because when discard for during your ride phase, you can Soul Blast 1, or put it to the bottom of the deck to draw a card, meaning extra advantage, especially on an Avantgarda. Really like to be able to beef up the hand and find our pieces. This card, though, has to be careful when using it because we cannot use it when we ride into our grade 1 because we still need our Star and Soul, so that's out of the question. But we can use it on riding into our grade 2 or our grade 3. But the other thing we need to be careful on is if we're trying to use multiple, because that then conflicts with the Halton Vogel, because this also needs a Soul Blast, and to gain its 5k power, you need to play an order that turn. So if you're wanting to use the grade 2 order, set order strategy that I usually want to do, you either have to just forego the 5k power, play it, put it to Soul, and then call this down to get its effect off, or you pretty much have to just forego the second Habitable Zone and just play this first and then place down the set order. So some stuff to test there for sure. I don't know which one will be better. I think it'll probably be pretty matchup dependent, but of course you always have the scenario where we just haven't found the Halton Vogel, so we'll just want to go for Habitable Zone anyway, which is perfectly fine. The other nice thing about this card is since we're constantly Persona Riding, we will have pretty consistent access to its second effect, to Counterblast 1, search the deck for up to 1 set order, add it to hand, and then you can play 2 orders that turn. On top of that, the next set order you play is for free. So because of that, I do run the 1 Refablishment Dock, which I think fits wonderfully into this deck. Truthfully, how this package came to be in this deck was I felt like I didn't need the Bulba Mine anymore or the Lloyd, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name, the grade 1 Dragon Tree card, because Hanada Halfway pretty much just takes what both those cards did but does it better. Well, arguably, I think functionally better for the deck, not technically better. And so it freed up 5 cards in my deck. I was like, well, this is a 5-card package, and it has additional synergy with the fact that we have our Halton Vogels, grade 3s that we want to be our main attackers. We are running 3 of the Freiheit, 4 of this, and we do have some more grade 2s. So it kind of, in the previous version, it felt like the board was getting a bit clogged up. A lot of times I didn't want this to be an attacker, so I'll be throwing the back row, but now just getting as a 10k booster is perfect. And same thing with the Habitable Zone. This can be just a 10k booster behind a Vanguard or an Halton Vogel, and we're feeling great. Furthermore, this card being able to play it for free means that we're cycling into yet another card from deck. So Habitable Zone isn't really finding us a set order. It's finding us, it's giving all our grade 2s boost for the rest of the game and drawing us an additional card, which is super strong. So this is pure theory. I'm hoping it'll be good. I think it will be good, but we'll see in testing. The final grade 2 of the deck is 2 copies of the Enlightened Age Dragon. So again, since we're Persona Rising, we can easily get the skill off, but for a Soul Blast and a discard, we can give it 5k and loop back 2 set orders. So this was in my previous version of the deck, and it's pretty much our late game way of being able to run less of our strategy cards, but more consistently loop them back, and also not feeling like we have to hold the Halton Vogel for those scenarios. We can more freely play them out to attack with and still easily loop stuff back with this card. Loop back 2 set orders really isn't too relevant, but hey, it's discard for a PG. It's pretty much how I think about it. And if we have the Refablishment dock up, it's a 15k booster as well. Or if we need an extra attacker, 15k attack scales pretty nicely as well. So I do like this card, 2 copies just for the late game. Moving over to the grade 1s, of course, the card I mentioned at the beginning of this video, 4 copies of the Hanada Halfway. This card, when placed on rearguard circle, as long as you have a blue Death Star Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card. So that's already card advantage, which is great. And then whenever it boosts, if you played a strategy card into your Aura Zone this turn, it gets 2k, means a 10k booster, and if it's in the back row center column, it countercharges 1. So pretty much how I view this card is it took what the grade 1 Dragon Tree card did and the Bulba Mine combined into one and is just functionally better for the deck. The problem with Bulba Mine and the grade 1 Dragon Tree card was the grade 1 Dragon Tree card was great at generating advantage, and Bulba Mine was our counter charge, but you had to go minus to use Bulba Mine. So those 2 cards kind of countered each other out. Meanwhile, this card, it lets you keep the plus, doesn't have you go minus for the counter charge, and to me, that is phenomenal. Definitely throwing this behind Vanguard as a booster, and it's very nice because you can use it on grade 2 to make just a 20k column, get a draw, and and pretty much refund the cost immediately. And of course, the counter charge has way more applications for that, meaning we can counterblast our way out and not have to worry to keep having too much damage, just to be able to use Avantgarda skill on our first grade 3 turn with the Halton Vogel, using counterblast, and of course, just our Habitable Zone on subsequent turns as well using Counterblast. It just gives this deck a lot more flexibility in resources, and of course plussing is just always good, so this card's phenomenal for the deck. Then for PGs, just the standard lineup, the 3 Planet Wall Dragon with the Elementaria Sanctitude. This at this point should need no explanation since this is not a grade 4 deck. For the triggers, I run 8 crit between 2 of the 5Ks, I'll explain that in a second, 3 front, 4 heal, and of course the Eldo Breath because Brancate OT is just that strong, so obviously we want to run it. So heals, the reason I'm not running any effect heals is because my locals does not lean towards any of the effect heals being very effective, so I just prefer the generic 15k shield in all matchups. Now the crits, which I'll talk about first, just the 5k crits, even though the soul is very nice for a lot of the cards I outlined, I don't really want to be giving up 15k shield for it, and since a lot of times I'm wanting to have the Halton Vogel in the front row, the 4k does not make magic numbers with them, and all our boosters, like our only grade 1 is the Hanada Halfway, which is a 10k booster, so it's not even like giving the Halton Vogel off of the effect crits effect 2k power makes magic numbers anyway. So I'd rather just have the best numbers to try to close out the game in the late game if I need to call down triggers. And finally, 3 front. This is because this deck, I think, will go through cards a lot faster. I mean, Avantgarda alone draws you a card and then restands with 1 drive check, so it's generating you 2 additional cards per turn. Since we're more consistently Persona riding, that means we're drawing an additional card per turn pretty consistently. Ride line thins out 2 cards. Then, of course, we've got more deck thinning with Halton Vogel, Freiheit, and then the Habitable Zone if we're using it, and then of course Hanada halfway drawing its cards. It's just so, oh, and of course Habitable Zone drawing its card if we discard it. So I think this deck's just kind of going through the deck a bit faster, so I'm worried that draws might push us closer to deck out. So the theory here is that we don't need the draws anymore, we just want to pump the front row and have it be as big as possible, meaning that it is really tough for the opponent to guard overall. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Might have to go back to fronts if I find that maybe in the early game, or really any point in the game, I'm just struggling with card advantage, and maybe it might be worth risking deck out because I just need the cards. We'll see in testing again. That's a big question, but I'm excited to test out these fronts. For our set orders of the deck, of course, I already went over the one Refablishment dock, but we need to talk about the strategy cards next. First off, I've got 2 of the Shock Strategy Death Winds. This is, I think, the best of the strategy orders, as when your Vanguard attacks, all your front row gets 5k. So this generates you 30k value if you're restanding your Vanguard. Only 15k if you're not. And that's why I think these are better saved for the Persona Ride turn, so you're not having to search out 2 of them. And I'll talk about the other ones, why I actually think the grade 2 is fine on the first grade 3 turn. But ideally, you'll just find this either by drawing into it, or the Halton Vogel will find us it, throw it to Soul, and then we can loop it back with the Vogel or the Inlane Age Dragon to keep using it turn after turn as we're Persona Riding. Again, just the idea of making our front row as big as possible with the 5 attacks is going to be super scary. Only 2 copies because we've got plenty of ways to search it out and loop it back from the drop zone, so I don't think we need any more. We can easily find this. For the grade 2, we've got Bomber Strategy Dusting. And of course, well, we only have these options, so we're kind of forced to run into it. And of course, this one, when put into Soul with the Vanguard's ability, you give your Vanguard 10k and your opponent cannot intercept or play Blitz orders during that turn. So that's for all attacks as well. So I do think this one is the best one going into our first grade 3 turn where we're not guaranteed standing. It just kind of means the extra 10k to Vanguard is if they want to guard it. If they don't have a PG, they're just going to have to throw out more guard value, and if they only have the Elementary Sanctitude, well, they can't play it. I don't think the intercept protection is too relevant, but I do think that can be a fun way to kind of force it, just kind of force some guard anyway, and again, that way we're not struggling to find these second Death Winds here. I think there is an argument to be made, maybe running more Death Winds and playing on the first grade 3 turn, and maybe just discarding this one, but for right now, I do like this card, and I liked it during set 9, so I'm going to keep using it. 2 copies, the theory being the same as with the OG Nirvana deck with the Verena. Since we're retrieving it so late, we want 2 copies in case one gets damaged or drawn to, so we can still thin the deck of 1 card and get that plus. And the final card of the deck is the grade 1, the Disruption Strategy Kill Shroud in a beautiful FR. So this one, of course, is what we're searching off of the Dark Verdict. We even see Dark Verdict in the artwork. And this one, when put into Soul, you get to choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire, and choose your Vanguard, and it gets 5k. So this card, I seldomly use this. It's not bad. I mean, sniping a card is really strong, and 5k is better than nothing, but I don't like this card over the other ones. I think the ones just do more because we're just wanting to attack, put pressure on the opponent to guard, not really looking to control the board. It's not really what this deck's trying to do. But of course, since we still have the 1 to search out, we definitely want to search this card out. But I think 1's fine in deck, even though there is a chance to damage check it or draw into it, the chances are low enough and happen infrequently enough that I think it's fine just running the 1 copy. I'd rather have the deck space for something else. As for the Mulligan, I really expect to want to see these kind of cards in here. Obviously, this is still theory. We'll see in practice, but going into it, this is what I expect. The first one being Persona Ride, or if we find a Freiheit, that can work too. It just means that we need an extra counterblast on our first grade 3 turn to be able to search it out. We still have some time, of course, to find, so it's not the end of the world, but definitely always keeping at least Persona Ride. I don't expect to keep Freiheit. I think I'd rather shuffle it back in to try to find it. But of course, if we end up on it, that is a-okay. The Halton Vogel, because it's our best attacker and searches out our grade 3 set order, and of course thins the deck, so it's really great. Want to see that. At least 1 habitable zone. We're really on average 1 habitable zone just to be able to get to that extra draw. And then of course the Hanada halfway, because it is our most powerful booster. We really want to be seeing this to draw more cards, get that counter charge going. And of course, as I think I mentioned when talking about this card, when you're on the grade 2, you can call it behind and immediately get that draw and boost, refund that cost, and just have a 20k Vanguard swing, which is super strong. But that is my first draft on D-BT10 Avantgarda with the new Hanada halfway. I'm super excited to start testing this deck. And if you are as well, let me know down in the comments below. How does your list differ from mine? And what are you testing? What have you found success in? I'm definitely interested. And once I get some testing in, I'll probably revisit this list and post an update video, just kind of how my testing went, what choices did I make and why, and what worked and what didn't. Because I think that's very interesting and hopefully can help some of you all become better deck builders as well. Because I know videos like this one have certainly helped out myself. And if you're looking forward to seeing an update or just further Vanguard content, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you're notified when I do upload more videos. But with that being said though, look forward to more content coming out real soon.